Okay, good morning. Ayin Beis, volume 3. We're in the middle of page 1261, Aleph Reish Samach Aleph. And the presenting question, which goes back to page 1213, and he elaborates more now. In the last, on Friday, we learned this last class. How is it possible that there'll be such a tremendous revelation of this core pleasure that's completely higher in Gan Eden, which is in the world of Bria? It's a complete leap, like a complete leap is like saying that the structure that's in place will completely be transcended, and you'll have such revelations in Bria from a reality that's so much higher and beyond, as he explains. Because Al Pisei the Ishtalshlus, Biyah, the worlds of Biyah, the neshama, the air comes from the kelim of Atzilus, and that itself, in the world of in the level of Bina, or even Bina, and but he said Bina Atzilus, the kelim of Bina, and more specifically, Bina de Malchus, or Bina of Zah, as he said. So since it's all coming from lower levels, so to speak, but definitely not the core essence of Atzilus, and for sure not the core essence of which Atzilus is Mekanin, or Chochmah is Mekanin, is Nesses in Atzilus, and definitely not the core essence of Kolshke Sheyagil B'chinas Tainaga Atzmi. So how is it possible that these levels, that would basically mean that Bria will no longer be different than Atzilus, which goes against the very structure that God put into place. So how do we explain that in a way that makes sense? And he said, Yifla, and even more wonder is that it will be in a form of Pnimi, not a Makif. If it's Makif, you could say, okay, you have an experience that's transcendent, but Pnimi means it's internalized, it's integrated. So that's the question that is being discussed here. Now, remember, this question is not necessarily the question, how does a student who began as a beginner, how does he internalize the wisdom of his teacher? Because that we can say, you expand your horizon. That's what Avodah is about. Avodah is about working on yourself. You expand your kelim, your containers of your mind, just like it is, like a 5-year-old becomes a 10-year-old, ben chamish lemikra, ben eser lemishnah. You go from the verses to Mishnah, to Gemara, to deeper and deeper and deeper. And you come to higher levels. Here, he's going even further than that. Here he's saying, but what about the Seder Shtalshlus aspect? The fact is, Bria is not meant to be Atzilus. Bria is meant to be Bria. Or maybe I should rephrase that. The fact is, Seder Shtalshlus is meant to be a structure. And here we're suddenly talking about levels that go completely not al pi Seder Shtalshlus klal. So as we'll learn, this is one piece of the interface. We call it integration, but the interface. There are more aspects. This is not the only thing that the Rebbe Rashab said in the last 1,260 pages, 61 pages about interface. There was a lot said about, someone mentioned Bittel, or other things that allow us to transform the Tzimtzum to be able to experience pre-Tzimtzum. And there were many aspects to that, including refining our animal soul. And as we've been learning even about emotions, as we grow from behavioral, impulsive, or reflexive emotions to cognitive emotions, to higher levels of cognitive, to emotions that become even more mature, where they nurture and they elevate the mind to experience things that are super consciousness, arich, atik, everything we've learned, that's all part of it. But here, it's clear that the Rebbe Rashab is concerned with the issue of Hishtalshlus and beyond Hishtalshlus. That on one hand, there's Hishtalshlus, and suddenly you're saying that there's revelations in Bria that are lay up Pisei Hishtalshlus klal. How does that work exactly? What is it that we do that allows us to experience structure and at the same time something that defies this very structure? Or let's say transcends this very structure, but is internalized as well. So just wanted to spell it out a little more, but as we learn it, we'll see there's a lot of aspects to this question and the answers to it. So it's not like this is not like the only punchline in Ayin Beis about how do you reconcile pre-Tzimtzum, post-Tzimtzum, or Atzilus and Bria. Well, let's learn inside, and then I'll elaborate more as we go. So he says, Acha Inyan Hu. The Inyan, Acha Inyan is a language in Chassidus that the answer is. But Chassidus never says, this is the answer. Also in Tanya, you'll see, Acha Inyan. It's because Chassidus never structures things in terms of, frames things in terms of question, answer. Chassidus is far more subtle, that here's a question, but we're going to understand the Inyan better. That's the language of Chassidus. Acha Inyan Hu. It doesn't say Yesh Leimer or the Teretz is, here's the Teretz. Acha Inyan, what is the Inyan in all of this? He says, the Hina Amshacha Zu, this Amshacha of Tainug Atzmi, which is higher than Atzilus, in Bria, which is lower than Atzilus, in Gan Eden, Simcha Shal Mitzvah. It comes to the Simcha that we have when we do a mitzvah. So you can do a mitzvah without joy. Simcha Shal Mitzvah means you're doing it, the mitzvah, with joy. Simcha. So the next page is going to be analysis of the concept, the very concept and power of Simcha. So how do you do it? Because it's known. Sha'avedes ha-mitzvahs tzorich liyos b'simcha dafka. So first he's going to establish the source and the grounding. How do we know we have to do things b'simcha? So he's going to bring the sources for this. It's known the service of mitzvahs has to be done dafka b'simcha. U'kamei shekasav. Like it says in Parsha Kisaveh, it says in the negative, because you did not serve God with Simcha v'tuv levov, and then he goes on to say the negative things. But we know from this, and this is also the pasuk the Alter Rebbe brings at the end of chapter 26 in Tanya, and he says, Ki yadua pirush ha'rizal b'zeh, the importance of avadat Hashem alekecha b'simcha v'tuv levov, serving God with joy and gladness of heart, and goodness of heart, gladness of heart. For Amr Razal say, Ein aimdim lispalul, you should not stand to daven, you shouldn't get up and daven, Lo metecha atzlus, not out of laziness. In other words, you shouldn't daven when it should not be through in a state of laziness, but lo metecha atzlus, and not in a state of depression, meaning the opposite of joy. So it says it in the negative. It could have said that. It says, a person should not daven when he's in a state of laziness or a state of atzvus, depression. Ella, how should he daven? Mitech simcha shal mitzvah. Only out of simcha shal mitzvah. First of all, davening itself is a mitzvah. And just in general, simcha shal mitzvah, there's a state of joy. But Omar Rabbi Yehuda, Omar Rav, I'm not sure if it's Rabbi Yehuda, Omar Rabbi Yehuda, Omar Rav, Omar Rabbi Yosef, Omar Rav. V'chein ledvar halacha. Says the same is not just by davening, but also ledvar halacha when you're going to learn halacha. It should also not be lazy and depressed, but through joy. Why he brings dvar halacha here? Because he wants to bring that not just the simcha during davening, he wants to say in general, simcha is necessary throughout. Shetzorach liyos hakol b'simcha dafka. Everything should be done with joy. Dafka, specifically with joy. And here the Rebbe Rashab says, as an opening statement, and he's going to explain it, Vayidei hasimcha. And when you have this joy, through this joy, ayidei zeh, through that, hu amshachem ebchinas atzmus ein sof, gam ba'elam es biyah. Through that, you have the amshacha, the transmission of Eid Ein Sof, also in Biyah. Before we said Eid Ein Sof and Biyah, that's like something that's not regular. So now the Rebbe Rashab has introduced another ingredient in Aveda, the ingredient of Simcha. That Simcha has the power to transcend infrastructure, and including the structure of Seder Ishtalshlus, and that will allow that Gan Eden and Bria should be able to experience Tainug Atzmi that's higher than Atzilus, and of course also Atzilus. the simcha. Okay. But he didn't explain yet how. He just said the statement that is through joy, which is a necessary element in Avodah. Joy is not an optional element, it's a necessary element. So now he's going to explain how. How does joy do this? What is joy exactly anyway? So he's going to explain. By inyan hu, we see the inyan of this is the hine anuroyin b'muhusa simcha ba'adam lamata. We see in the very core personality of dissecting the anatomy. Muhusa simcha, I would say the anatomy of joy. Adam lamata, a human being below, meaning in us. She'esha benafshe, that when a person is in a state of joy, it creates a certain mindset, a certain soul set. A person's state of mind or state of in his nefesh, there's a certain type of state. What is it? She'esha benafshe gili hatzofim v'nelim shebeteich teich levave. It reveals that which was hidden and concealed, or concealed and hidden, in the innermost teich teich, the innermost part of his heart. Something he would never have revealed in any way. Basically, no way that he would reveal this. Being that it's in the innermost and in the most concealed way, great concealment in the innermost core of his nefesh. In other words, basically, briefly, a human being in a regular state without joy it has things you express to others, whatever you want to express, but the innermost feelings or the innermost sentiments and intimate experiences remain completely concealed, will never be revealed. Simcha, when a person is in a state of simcha, you see that it causes his nefesh to reveal those innermost states within the person. He's going to elaborate more about this. Ashaloya Megal is something he would never have revealed on his own. Simcha. However, through joy, on his own he wouldn't have revealed it, but through joy, sheyismach v'yetiv liboy, that he's celebrating, and his heart v'yetiv liboy, his heart is in a state of gladness, in a state of extension and goodness. Be'eza davar ma. In something. He doesn't say what. For example, it could be the marriage of your child. It could be the birth of a child. It could be some other thing that caused you such great joy. That reaches and touches in the inner core. Then he will not hold back that spirit. Till now, without the joy, we said, he would never have revealed it. Here, lo yatzer ruach. Lo yatzer ruach means he would not restrain, he would not hold back, would not stop his spirit from expressing itself. And he reveals all that inner core within himself. The im chacham, who, and if he's a chacham, if he's a wise person, this person that's now in a state of joy, yigala kol emek pnimius chachmasei, he reveals, because since wisdom is his so-called profession, is his domain, is his vocation, is the word I wanted to say. So what does he do? Since Pnimius Nafshe, what's by him Pnimius Nafshe? Chachma. So he reveals Kol Emek Pnimius Chachma, all the depth of his inner wisdom, the Ribei Teisvus Er Godel, in abundant and increased great light or revelation of the Talmidov to his students, b'shef yesera, with an increased flow, shelo megala klal zulas hasimcha, that he would never have revealed were it not for this joyous state that he's in, this joy. Rak b'mida haktsuva levad, he would have only revealed it in a very limited measure. He would have measured, in other words, ktsuva is measured. But the simcha causes him to reveal all this innermost wisdom to his students without limits, without this like basically free flow, without filters. That's what simcha does. Okay. And now the Rebbe Rashab is going to explain this in the context of wisdom. Even though he clearly made it clear, this isn't just for purely Chochmah and Chochem. Any person, whatever it is they have within them, Simcha basically opens the doors, opens essentially you open yourself up. With a Chochem, it comes through Chochmah. So he's going to explain the Chochmah part a little bit more now. It says like this, V'yadua, it's known, the Teva de Gadlus HaMeichin, the Teva of a mature mind, who's latzer la'akiv ba'atzmei. A child says whatever's on their mind. A person who's not particularly mature talks more than they need to talk. But a person who's a mature mind, the nature is to hold back. Latzer is to restrain. Ula'akiv, and to stop or slow down, or la'akiv to stop. Ba'atzmei, within himself. Lo la'ashpia luzulase. Not to transmit to another. And definitely not in an expansive way. Now, this is not because he is stingy or unwilling to give. It's just a mature mind in general, by nature, is more measured and will say what needs to be said, not more than necessary. So generally speaking, his maturity of the mind, as you'll see, people of that level scholar, they're really much more, isolated. They're private. Like I mentioned the Rebbe for many times, he would say, what does he need all this? When he would talk about sometimes something that aggravated him. So consider, my nature is not to be in public anyway. I always prefer sitting in my own room, learning Rambam, Rashi, whatever. In general, a person that's on that level of mind, it's less social. Real intellectuals are less social than smaller intellectuals. Doesn't mean they can't be, but we're talking their natural state is to be a little more, I don't say reclusive, but a little more inward, or a lot more inward. So latzu la'akibat leila shpilu zulasi because can be bashpa. The ashpa mitzad akatnos, because ashpa is due to katnos. Now let me explain what this means. Doesn't mean that chacham gadol can't be mashpia, but even if he has to be mashpia, this chacham, he needs to go into a state where he's relating to the students. So the very fact that you're transmitting means you've already gone down a level from your own exalted state of mind. So two things. The nature of a chacham in general is to be more within himself and not so much like shpia. And the very nature of ashpa, it requires more katnus, meaning channeling and bringing down the mind. It's not in its purest form. A person who's just like, you see someone who's really, we talked about this, innovating some brilliant ideas, actually being in touch with other people is distracting. They pull themselves apart. Like if you see someone who's really learning something and is very deeply immersed or engrossed, and you come over and like tap them, you startle them because they are, they're very much into their place, and any type of outsider will like disturb it. He doesn't say that in detail here because it's not relevant so much the isolating part, but he wants to. But basically, this type of mature focus and concentration goes counter to ashpa. And ashpa means that you're extending yourself and therefore you're coming down, so to speak, a level or two or whatever is necessary. So bottom line is, therefore, the nature of a chacham would be without simcha, would not be revealing all that he knows. It would be the opposite. He reveals only that which is necessary and measured, as he said. Like he says elsewhere. However, but during ubeis and during a joyous occasion, simcha yashpia b'riba b'yeser. This very chacham who on his own would not do that, he's mashpia with an abundance b'riba b'yeser. And now he adds something else, not just to others. The gam boy ba'atzmai. This chacham in a state of joy, also within himself, misrabel misgaber b'teis v'seir be'etzem koyach chachmasei. In himself is also now an expansive state. It will increase and intensify with an abundance of be'etzem koyach chachmasei. In other words, his power of intelligence is going to explode. Basically, it doesn't say explode, but it's going to burst forth. Shebo kol ma shebehelem hagonuz b'koyach chachmasei lidei gilui. that everything that is concealed and hidden in the power of his intelligence, he brings it out lidei gilui, in a revealed way, gam biyesed mikafiyat gilui shalei. Also, more than it would have been on a regular basis, his regular flow of intelligence. Meaning also when he learns on his own. So not only is it going to come out to others, to students, but also he himself is going to, his mind is going to open up and be revealed more than even he himself on a regular basis has access to when he's learning on his own. And this is an additional reason, since so-called the floodgates have opened within himself, and that due to that itself is also he's unable to restrain and refrain himself, and therefore he's being mashpia to luzulose to another. So first he began with the other, then he went back to himself, but now he's saying, once you have that type of your state of mind that it's flowing like that, so that too causes you to flow to give and be mashpia, transmit to the other. The klolos ha'inyan and the general inyan of this is kiteva simcha hi lifreitz geder. Why is joy have this power? Because the nature of joy is to pierce boundaries. To pierce, geder is like a fence, but geder means boundaries. It pierces and lifreitz. When you say lifreitz geder means you break through the normal boundaries that contain and create structure and so on. Like he says, he's going to later. He's going to say he's going to take in the Maimer Samach to Samach. Usually, the Simcha Poides Geder is the Maimer Samach to Samach from the Rebbe Rashab that he said at the Rebbe Friedrich Rebbe's wedding. He's going to mention it later on page 1264. But right now, its inyan is Lifreitz Geder. So, in other words, like just a simple example, when you're walking, when you're in a regular state of being, so there's boundaries. You don't just cross over a fence or another type of partition or boundary, because that's your place is here, not there. Peritzas Geder means that you break through anything that's blocking, and that's the nature of joy. It basically opens up hitherto closed channels or closed boundaries. Lifreitz Geder. Dahainu, which means, kol hagdara v'agbola shebenefesh, every boundary, every parameter and limit in the nefesh, in the soul, teva simchahu, the nature of joy is lifreitz hagdara v'yispashet. I'm sorry, lifreitz hagdara. I skipped the line. Lifreitz hagdara, to break through this boundary. Like you see, people are very repressed or very shy or withholden. They're not expressing themselves. You see, when they're in a state of joy, suddenly that natural, so-called like shyness or natural restraint is eliminated, and it breaks through. The simcha breaks through every geder. V'hainu, and what gedarim are we talking about here? V'hainu hagdaras hakoiches. We're talking about the Agdara, the parameters, or the boundaries of the faculties. Every faculty, whatever faculty it is mugdir, is defined by and limited by, and limited by its gili, how much will be revealed and extend. It's not unlimited. Everything has its regular flow. And simcha will break through these parameters, these boundaries of the faculty, that the revelation and the expansion will be an increased state. You see, I mean, anyone that's been by a real simcha, their own simcha, you're marrying off a child. So this way, you go to a wedding, yes, you'll dance, you'll celebrate. But when it comes to a simcha that becomes really very personal, what happens? You don't stop dancing I mean, obviously, a human being is still a human being, and you can get exhausted and you have limits. But we're talking about the regular limits that usually apply in whatever faculties you're using will be broken through. That's what Simcha does. When you have that joy, it just breaks through boundaries and doesn't have the regular demeanor, if you wish, the demeanor, the attitude that's more calculated and more defined when you're not in that state of Simcha. So you see here, I mean, it's pretty elaborate how much the Rebbe Rashab is elaborating on explaining what Simcha does. So I don't want to stop the flow for questions. Let's just read. Let's see how far he goes with this. So he says, the Gam Peretz. So in addition to the fact that it's Peretz the Hagbolas HaKeiches, Peretz Hagdara Hativis Gamkein. So in other words, let's say, like I just said, with dancing or other expression, that the usual restraint that we exercise and we impose is, but Simcha breaks through, but he's now saying more. Simcha also changes your nature. That even if you're wired a certain way, Simcha can go beyond that. Not just the limits that restrain our faculties, but also the very faculties themselves, the natural definitions of our Hadva, Gamkein, Hagdar Hativis Gamkein, the defined natural definition of a person, V'hainu. And this means, Gama Shamutva Ba'odem B'teva B'tel Dosei. Also that which is naturally ingrained, or you could say wired, into a person by nature of his birth. Basically, it's his very genetic nature. Mishtana al simcha gets changed through joy. Ukamoi, b'riboy hizgalus v'ashwa be'esa simcha, as we see, or not we see, ukamoi, like the extensive or the expansive revelation and ashpa and the expression and transmission during a simcha sheyagala kol mitzpunei levove. Next page, 1262. He reveals all the hidden elements of his heart. Gamashu etzlei seid kamus v'chosum. Also that which is by him a concealed and sealed, a locked and concealed secret. She'ena megala gam l're'eu, that he does not usually reveal, also even to his friend, and to his beloved, Hamiti, a true beloved and friend, Yigala b'shas simcha. By simcha, however, he'll reveal secret, a sealed secret that he would not have revealed even to his true friend and beloved. He will reveal during the simcha, which means he's going against his very nature, because his nature would be to conceal it, and here he's not. Okay. And we have to understand what that means exactly. I mean, yeah, we see this happens to be a fact that a person will reveal, because they will reveal even that. I'm trying to find an example what that would mean. Well, we know by Simchas Torah or Purim, often by the Rabbeim, they would say things that they would never say on any other time. And some things were quite very private. I don't mean private in a personal way, but private as in something that they usually would not reveal. The secret for something the reason they did something, for instance, that was not known till then. So I guess he's referring to things like that. There's Megala Seid comments that he would not reveal otherwise. Okay. Now, since he spoke about Seichel, now he's going to say also Bashpas Hamidus. The Chaim Bashpas Hamidus. That also in the giving of the extension, the expression, or the transmission of the emotions, Kamei b'midas hachesed v'atev, like the midah, the emotion of love and goodness and kindness, sheyetiv b'chazde l'chol adam harbe yesim mekafi amidah, that he extends and shows kindness to every person much more mekafi amidah than the regular measure. Also due to simcha. Ukamoy came bashpas asechel gamkein. Not sure why he's bringing that. I thought he said that already, but maybe he's going back to the secrets. Bashpas asechel gamkein. The riba ashpa by the transmission of intelligence in the intensive or extensive transmission. V'yigala in yane chochmeh. He reveals matters of wisdom. Shoy kamusim etzlei, that were sealed by him or locked by him, closed up. V'lo yehoye megala isam b'shum eifen, that he would never have revealed under any circumstances. Rak mitzad simcha. It's only the joy that opens up that door. The truth is, he said it before. That's what Shabol Kol Ma Shebehelam Hagonus B'Keich Chachmasei. Okay, I guess he's bringing out the idea of revealing a secret now, something that was concealed before. Not just concealed as in like in the faculty, but more concealed like as an actual piece of information that he reveals now. Okay. I'll stop here for now a moment. Anybody want to comment or ask anything, please? Nothing?
Maybe
Can you
he's
give us
about
an example of this with the Rebbe? A certain chiddush or something that he gave us that he normally wouldn't on Simplest Torah, Forum or something.
Yeah. I have to think a few things. But let me hear, meanwhile, someone Shlomo want to say something? Someone else was speaking
maybe
up?
I wanted to say maybe why is he repeating about Chochmah again? Because right now he wants to say that the Poiretz HaGdore HaTivis Gamken, same way that we see it by Chesed.
Yeah, I just alluded to that. Correct. I agree. That's correct. Yeah. Before he was speaking more the Keches Nalamim, so to speak. And here he's speaking about like a Seid HaKomus HaGonus. Yeah, that's correct. I'm trying to think. There were definitely by the Rebbe Rashab, the Rebbe as well, Simcha status where they revealed very deep Chassidus that they usually did not reveal. But I'm thinking of a specific thing. I have to give it some more thought. I'm sure there are. Nothing coming to mind right now. But there were definitely things that were revealed. Purim, as well as Simchas Torah. I have to think about it some more.
The first, when we began the discussion today, you talked about that the Giloi Gadol Kazad Bechinas Tainug Atzmi. The Tainug Atzmi, you said Tainug Atzmi is higher than Atzilus, right? Where is this Tainug Atzmi level are we talking about there? That's Megala. Is it with the Tainug of Atzilus or higher than Atzilus and Kesser?
Arich and Atik. And then on the higher levels, in the root of roots, Lifnei Tzimtzum, before the Tzimtzum.
Good. Second thing, what happened to Simcha v'Tuv Levav? Is there any discussion about what's Tuv Levav add to this?
What?
Tuv Levav. You remember with the quote, the pasuk from Chumash, because you didn't serve God with Simcha and Tuv Levav, so obviously there's something.
You said here too, the third line of the top of paragraph says Simcha v'Tuv Levav.
Is there, what I'm asking, is there anything different between Tuv Levav and Simcha itself? Additional
I don't know. Not here. He hasn't spelled anything out here differently. And here it comes together, and the third, the pasuk says it, "B'simcha v'tuv levav."
Okay, and finally, my final question here is that empirically, don't we see like with the Maimorim? I mean, you would know this better than anybody, but because of being a hoser. But wasn't it true that, I mean, when the Rebbe would reveal the deepest Chassidus, say in Maimorim, I don't remember that being like Simchas Torah. I remember that being much more serious than Simcha Dik. And so I was wondering how that empirically, where you see that Simcha reveals this deepest level, whereas we see that within our being.
First of all, Simcha and seriousness are not a contradiction. The Rebbe was serious on Simchas Torah as he was joyous, because it wasn't frivolous, superficial joy. It was just a very deep joy. The Rebbe was, there was, I remember, the sikhs of Simchas Torah before our kafas were the deepest of all year round. That's for sure. That's not even a question. They were the deepest Chassidus that the Rebbe would reveal then. There was, I'm thinking of a secret that, and now the Rebbe throughout the year, yeah, of course, there's not a contradiction. Remember, Simcha is all year round. The whole point of Simcha is it should be all the time. I just mentioned Simchas Torah because it stood out, but the truth is the Rebbe was this Simcha he's talking about is not just on Simchas Torah. He's talking about that you're supposed to avodas Hashem has to constantly be with Simcha. So you could say every time the Rebbe, there were times the Rebbe you saw revealed in a revealed way. It was very expansive, and the Simcha, the brachas that came out, the statements, the ideas, expansive. What he's saying here is pretty logical. You see it with every human being. He said, Adam Lamata, just look at times when we're really joyous and really state of joy, how much a person will extend themselves beyond the natural. It's pretty clear what he's saying here. I was just going to give some examples that I saw of the Rebbe, but even without that, the idea is clear. No?
I don't know. I'm just thinking about this, the fact that it reveals the deepest secrets and levels when through Simcha. I don't know.
Have you ever been in an unbridled joy in your life?
Yeah, but sure, thank God. But
okay, and there's a certain expansiveness when a person is that place that goes beyond the normal boundaries. Let's stick to that. So you're saying that you didn't reveal any secrets like the combination code for your safe. That's what you mean?
No, just like, in therapies, people reveal their deepest secrets or so in therapies sometimes. And I don't know if they're doing it more out of fear of what's going on in their lives than Simcha. Here, the Rebbe is making a huge case for Simcha. And I'm just trying to look at empirically. And obviously the Rebbe is correct. I'm just trying to understand it with it. Because we see in therapies and things where there's breakthroughs. I've seen psychologists and things talks about breakthroughs. I don't always know that it's because of at a time when the person's most besimcha.
That's not what he's not talking about therapy here and about healing. He's talking about the reason that he's talking about the avodah to serve God should not just be done in a regular way, but with great joy.
That I understand.
Great joy creates periods together, unlimited. When people dance, let's say Sukkot is Man Simchas Seinu, Simchas Torah, Simchas Beis HaShe'eva, dancing all night, doing things that go beyond the regular. That's the key thing here. So that's all he's saying. It's very straightforward. He's explaining what Simcha is, why Simcha is so vital in Avodah, and its effect is that it opens up the gates. By a wise person, he will reveal new ideas, both within himself. He's an expansive state. You see this. People are very, very bejoy. Their minds open up. There's a lot of the expansiveness is very, very apparent, and also to others. And that's what he's saying here. And then he goes further. It says that even secrets that a person would conceal. This is not about secrets of a person's ghosts or skeletons, not therapy. This could be secrets that nichnas yain yotze soid, the idea of secrets of the Torah. Maybe secrets of primus Torah, secrets of that a person doesn't have the usual defensive mechanisms that they usually protect themselves and self-consciousness, that they will not say certain things. People in great Simcha say, and even later they say, hey, I didn't realize I said something maybe I shouldn't have said. Things like that. It's more just an openness where you don't have the usual restraints and the usual defenses and all the calculations and machinations that repress people from really expressing themselves. When people are in a state of joy, they have that expansiveness. That's the punchline here. So, okay. So now he's bringing a Idra Zuta, Zoyar, in Hazinu. Daf Reish Sadik Aleph, Seif Amad Aleph. It's talking about Rashbi when he was in a state of great joy. 291, the bottom of page A. Va'ad hashta have a miskasen ilan milan. Till now, these words were concealed. Did chilno legala? He was afraid. We were afraid to be revealed them. Hesitated from revealing them. Vahashta is Galion, and now they're being revealed. The hachamina dekula chaden b'hay hilula delay. Because
Dili.
Sorry. So Rashbi said, until now, these words was concealed because there was a fear, a concern, a hesitation to reveal. But now it's being revealed. The chamina, the kula chadon. Chadon is simcha. Chamina is to see. The chamina, the kula chadon. No, chadon is, I'm sorry, that you're all united.
No, simcha, simcha. Because I see that everyone is happy in my hilula.
Yeah, because I see that everybody, I thought chadon also from the word united, but you're right. And what I said initially from the word simcha, I see that everybody is rejoicing. Bahai hilula dili, in my hilula, as we know, hilula means istalkus, but also hilula is from the yem hilula as in a celebration. So you see from this, that is this simcha that caused Rashbi to reveal things he till now never revealed. So earlier we learned this, that there were things that he even didn't even reveal to his students, because they were beinei lebeinatzmei. But now he's saying the things that he revealed due to the great joy. The chain, and so too, begilui hahelam legabe atzmai. Yeah, like he said before, not just revealing it to others, but also in revealing that which is concealed in contrast, in relation to himself. Yisrabe b'teisvus yiseda b'esa simcha. So there's an increase with an abundance during joy. Giluyim me'etzem keichach mosei. A revelation, of abundance of revelations from the core power, faculty of his wisdom. Sichlim gedelim v'amukim b'yeser. Great and profound ideas. And now he brings a few Maimorei Chazal that emphasize this. Ukamaya gavra chamra adardike. So there he's talking about, famous expression. Gavra chamra adardike. Ukamaya chamra verecha pikchin. Yeah. So chamra is referring to beer, like drinking beer. So what does that cause? Let me see again the expression. Where to go here? Oh, gavra chamra adardike.
Wine. Chamra is wine.
Yeah. So gavra chamra adardike, I think, is when a person drinks wine, it causes his mind to work better, like it says, chamra verecha pikchin, that the wine and a powerful smell causes a person to be pikchin, sharper. It sharpens the mind. That's what he's saying. So you see here how simcha sharpens the mind, even for yourself, that more is revealed. V'zehu, and this is due to the fact
Gavra chamra adardike means when there is a lot of wine and you are happy, then you are lowering yourself to the small children, because the simcha brings you down.
It means it makes you more expansive, giving.
Yes.
Basically. Yeah. Okay. And is also, that's the others, and also to yourself, you get sharper. Okay. And this is due to the fact because simcha reaches all the faculties. No, simcha opens up and reaches and opens up all the faculties in their inner and core state. And through that, so Simcha is like a door opener to all those inner states, and through that, they come out, they extend, they get expressed. They go out of their natural parameters. Because the parameters or the definitions of the faculties are in the level of revelation. That's only as they express themselves as a reflection, not as the etzem, just a reflection of that faculty. But the core of a faculty does not have any limitations. So, for example, when a person is using their mind, in a regular basis, yes, they're using their mind. That's a reflection and a gilui, a revelation of the mind. But etzem koyach chachmaseh is the very core of the mind, which is connected to the so-called source of intelligence, and there's no limits in the same way, because the source of like the supraconscious. And that's why through Simcha, through which is revealed the core faculty, it comes in an increased revelation and extension or expression. So there's a lot of elaboration here, even some overlap and repeat. But now, what he went now goes even deeper than before. Before he was talking about how Simcha opens up the doors, but now he's saying that Simcha touches, in other words, it reaches into the deepest core of the person, and therefore the faculties open up in a much more expansive way. Going back to Geder HaTivi. And this power to pierce or transcend Gdorim, Lifreis. Oh no, not Kol Kach. I think it's a Kamei Kain. Usually Chav is called Kach. It's Kamei Kain. Kamei Kain, yes, B'keach HaSimcha, and so too, the power of joy has the power, Lifreis Gam Geder HaTivi. Also to pierce and transcend and go beyond, break through the natural boundary, the natural partition, the natural boundary of whatever faculty we're talking about. This is what he said before in the bottom of last page. Let's see what he says. Like we actually see, the gam mishu kamtzen v'chili b'yeser, even a person who's very stingy. And what's the word? Chili is very, it's like stingy. Another word for
Chila is a strong expression of a stingy.
Yeah, very stingy. Yeah. So someone who's very stingy, be yeser increasingly. That his money is more precious to him than his body. In other words, money is that precious. During a joyous occasion, by the wedding of his only son, when his soul is very much in joyous state, when he's very much celebrating, he'll completely be transformed from his previous nature of being stingy, and he'll become someone that is just pouring out and giving a lot of chesed. He's splurging and giving greatness. And he essentially, yafkir kol chushay means he's completely the opposite of protecting. V'yafkir, he's just making it available to everybody. All his treasures, all his possessions. Betum levave, in innocence of his heart. Kamoishehu pazan betivei, just as if he was an actually splurging type of personality. He wasn't. But Simcha caused him to become one. And he wants everyone to benefit from his kindness, from his goodness. Now, I know the question is going to be, have you seen this happen? A stingy person become like that? I have, actually. I don't know if it lasted long, but during a Simcha, suddenly a person who was never a giver or was very stingy and very, what's the word? very held back, became very giving because of the moment of the Simcha. Okay. Ukahai Gavna, and similarly, B'kol HaKeches, and all the faculties. Here we spoke about Seichel, we talked about Chesed. Now, Yochel Liyas Sheyisapchu, it's possible that they should be transformed. The Etzem Tivam, their core nature, L'fishal Kapanim, at least momentarily. V'yeshanisha Kach Le'elam, and there's also a scenario that it remains this change forever. Behipach HaTeva HaKodum, in the fact that his personality, his previous natural personality has changed forever.
It's fascinating how
That's pretty strong. Okay,
everything.
Zeu kasher asimcha, and this is when simcha, joy, magas, be'etzem hanefesh mamish, that when simcha reaches the very core soul, which right away qualifies that a person whose simcha does not reach the very core, obviously is not going to have this type of impact. We're talking about a simcha, a real joy that goes to the core, mamish, that it goes bagaz be'etzem hanefesh mamish, literally to the core of the soul. So now he's adding some more words. It causes an exaltedness, a type of grandeur, a majestic elevation and exaltedness of the nefesh. The nefesh is soaring. The joy has caused him to soar to a place that he elevates higher than the limited parameters or boundaries of the koiches be'etzem, of the koiches in their fundamental state. Just like the core soul, mushlalis makola koiches, just like the core soul negates and is beyond, transcends all the faculties. Gama koiches ha'atzmim, also the core faculties, meaning the faculties as they are in the core soul. But the etzem hanefesh is even higher. Rak mashi neisa ba'asma kol hakeches. So the etzem hanefesh just carries all the faculties as potential in itself. She'enim sham b'chinas mitzias klal. In the etzem hanefesh, these faculties are not a mitzias at all. I'll explain this in a minute. The klal uklal at all. Al derech shanefesh achasi. They're there in a unified and seamless state, just like the nefesh itself is unified. The nefesh is not made up of parts. The nefesh is one seamless, shapeless whole that carries in it the potential for faculties. Then lower states, the faculties become koiches atzmim, core faculties. Then they become koiches hiyulim and koiches nalamim and koiches gluyim. Which means, so when I sit right now, take my fingers and I write, that's a koyach goli. That's an actualized, revealed faculty. Even if I'm not writing, my hand has the power to write. So that's a koyach nelam. It's concealed, which obviously is stronger than the revealed part. Beyond that is a koyach hiyuli, is a type of core potential state. Beyond that is a koyach atzmi, which means it's the core source of the power to write. Just like your eye, it sees, but then there's the optic nerve and all the way inside the brain, the ability. And then there's the etzem hanefesh that carries all faculties. So he's saying simcha be'etzem, when it really touches etzem hanefesh, elevates the person to that soaring state, which is beyond all the faculties. So he's explaining deeper now why simcha does this. Not just that simcha causes one to get beyond the boundaries of the faculties, it's going into the very engine room of where all these faculties originated from. And they are there in that state, and because of that, and that's why it can cause a change, whether temporary or permanent, in all the faculties. Because how is it possible? If a person's natural is to be stingy, how can that be changed? Because if you go deeper into the faculty, into its core place, before it became shaped into stinginess, so that's why you could change it to that it should not be at all like its natural parameters. V'gam, and also and additionally, all the faculties rise in this exalted, soaring type of state in Etzem HaNefesh, v'ayidei mishtanim hakeches atzmam. So it's two things he's saying. The Etzem HaNefesh has the power to change it, and also the faculties go up, and that's why these keches can change on their own, ma'advar shalehem, from their natural wiring. And it's possible that it should cause a change that will remain permanently. There should remain that goodness, that good personality that now shifted into this teiv state, in this good state, should remain forever. Okay. So there you have an entire paragraph analyzing and dissecting the anatomy of joy, as simcha, and what it does to us. So briefly, firstly, it goes beyond the regular boundaries like he started. Reveals that which he would not naturally reveal. By a wise person, that means through wisdom, that usually he'd be more restrained, and here he's just letting it flow. Also within himself, his mind is now far more creative, far more generating a lot more deeper intelligence. Okay? And the reason is because it's played its together. Because Simcha breaks down and transcends the regular boundaries. And to the point, not just that you go beyond it, but it actually can also change the very wiring and the nature of a person. It's interesting. First he says it changes the nature, then he went back to secrets and seichel and the Rashbi and all that. And then he went back to teva of this, and give the example of the stingy person who can actually change either temporarily or permanently. And ultimately it's because Simcha reaches the core essence of the soul, and therefore it has the ability to essentially eliminate the usual hierarchy and structure and the filters of faculties. That's the brief summary. The next paragraph, which we'll learn tomorrow, he's going to explain Hadugma Mizel Yuval Lamailo, how we understand above what this Simcha does to Seder Ishtalshalos. In other words, Seder Ishtalshalos has a certain flow and structure, a certain ebb and flow, if you wish. And Simcha disrupts the whole thing in a good way. It causes Seder Ishtalshalos to shift from its natural order. And that would ultimately be why Tainug Atzmi can end up being internally integrated into Gan Eden. That's where he's going with this. But right now, that's the Simcha. That's interesting. Oh, wow, that's very interesting. So, it's a good way to understand this is by thinking, imagine, God forbid, we didn't have Simcha. Let's say God did not bless us with the concept of rejoicing, of joy, of celebration. We live our lives, things are go this way, that way, but the concept of Simcha doesn't exist. A human being doesn't have Simcha. What would we be like? So basically, we would be far more defined and limited in our regular structures. Simcha, which we know also is connected to song, it's connected to dancing, it's connected to everything around. I mean, he's talking here purely Simcha without how that Simcha manifests, introduces into our lives transcendence. That's the way I would sum this up in a very simple English. It introduces transcendence, transcending your own natural attitudes, restraints, inhibitions, and structures. That's how I would sum up what he said right now. And that in turn causes a transcendence in the higher worlds, which we'll learn next. So I would stop here, but let me take any questions if anybody wants to ask anything.
It is fascinating, but he did not explain how is Simcha doing it. It is doing it. Poiretz Geder, reaching the Etzem. What is in Simcha?
Well, I think the only way to explain that, just like you can't explain colors to a blind person, I think the only way to explain Simcha is to a person who has Simcha. Think about the Simcha that you or anybody has, and ask yourself what changed the day I was a Yom Simcha for me and the day before. And the answer is Simcha is a faculty within us. I don't mean a koyach, but more of a capacity within us to simply go to a place where we usually don't go. It's just God blessed us with, just like there's the koyach ha-chochmah, seichel and midas and so on, or koyach hariyah and shmiyah, there's another thing called simcha. Simcha is the ability to go to a place. Usually it happens due to a cause. It can be due, like I said, the simcha of a child's wedding. It could be other simchas in our lives. It could also be where a person, simchas hachayim, he says to himself, look, God blessed me with a family. God blessed me with life and health. It creates, I think, a remus hanefesh in the words he uses, that you're able to get to a place that's not the regular, what's the word I want to use? The regular routines of our lives that wear us down. Simcha is the opposite of that. So if you look at your life, the things that wear you down, make you feel limited, small, unable to do something, when you feel, I really can't do it. Simcha is the exact opposite state. So if atzvus weighs us down and makes us feel not confident and makes us feel limited instead of expansive, Simcha is the counterforce to that, which makes you feel uplifted, feel everything is possible, driven, excited, and also ultimately expressing more than you put your whole life into it. Look at the difference between a happy worker and an unhappy worker, even in a business, even in a job. Someone doesn't like what they're doing, they're going to give it their minimum. They're not going to really invest a lot. Someone that's besimcha feels the work I do is gratifying, it's purposeful, it's what God wants me to do. It just makes you feel uplifted, you feel light. Like it says in Pasha Vayetze, we're going to learn about, it makes you feel light in the sense, nasa kala leches. Yaakov knew that he got Abish's brachas. Imagine when you're going to meet the person to your chuppah. It makes your whole being elevated and expansive and so on. Another Maimonim, he talks about how the melech b'yem simchasei just opens everything up and gives his eitzes, his treasures, like a little what he said here before, the secrets and all that in a yem simcha. So I don't know if you can define, simcha, we know what it feels like. We know its effect on us. Can you dissect it and turn it into an ingredients? Is there a medication that you can take, a drug that you can take that makes a person joyous? People are doing it all the time, but that, I don't know if that's real simcha. That's called, fabricated or induced. So yeah, there's like laughing gas. I don't know if they still use it. There's gas that makes you laugh. And maybe that makes you able to deal with like dental work or other things like that. I'm not sure if that goes in this category. He's obviously talking about natural joy within us. Look, I think also, I like to look at, when people talk about simcha, as adults, we know simcha is not always easy to achieve because life can be very difficult. But look at children. Children are naturally besimcha. You don't need to tell them to be joyous. They have this exuberance, this animated sense of adventure, free abandon. They're just happy. They're just happy naturally. I mean, there are exceptions, I'm sure. It's only when they start seeing sad adults and sad parents that they start being told, like, what are you so happy about all the time? Like someone told me the other day, his parents are supposed to say, what are you so happy about? Until they made him into a depressed soul. He's not happy anymore. So there's a natural simchas achayim. I'm not saying it's the deepest simcha he's talking about here, but it's a lightness of spirit, as opposed, I think the best way, like anything, how do you know what light is? By looking at dark. Contrast simcha with the opposite of simcha, and then I think you start getting an understanding of what it's like. That's essentially what we've learned here. Yeah.
It's such an important ingredient, if you will, and here particularly as it has a function in even being able to transcend, to use your word, the Seder Hishtalshelus, that one would think that there would be, like Rabbi Teichtel's asking, a more kind of intrinsic question, like what is its nature? So, for example, it is some sort of an emotion. So you would think it would be expressible in terms of the midos. Like, for example, chesed seems more like happiness, because it's giving. It's expansive, and sadness seems more like gvura. It's more withdrawn. It's more limited. But yet, happiness is not. It's not defined in terms of the midos, at least so far as anyone said so far.
No. In the spheres, tainug is usually connected to chachma. Simcha is aim habonim smecha bina. It does have identification with levels. It's not relevant to this discussion here right now. That's the thing, because he's not, until now, he hasn't really put it into a darga, but maybe he will in the next paragraph. So right now, he's talking about it more as a general state of being, but it is associated with certain spheres, so on. It is.
Okay.
Yeah, Shabbos in Yom Tov. Yom Tov is Simcha. So Yom Tov is Bina, Shabbos is Chochmah, yeah. But we'll get there. I wouldn't go there right now because just confuse matters. I think we should just talk about the very nature of Simcha. Like I said, chapter 26 in Tanya, and in general, those chapters, 26 and on, all talk about this. That's where he starts, chapter Chavov, yeah. But Atzvus and Simcha are the two opposites, yeah.
To Rabbi, Rabbi Eliezer's question, what's the difference between Simcha and Tu Levav? I mean, they must be slightly different. I guess I'm hearing the Rabbi says it all the time, the phrase.
Well, it's a pasuk from it's the pasuk in Kisave here. The third line in chapter, in the paragraph on page 1261, he quotes it. B'simcha v'tuv levav, or v'tuv levav. He just doesn't explain the distinction here. That's all. I didn't explain it because the Rebbe Rashab doesn't explain it. So.
Oh, you're saying there is, and we just haven't gotten into it yet.
Or it's not relevant here. He may not
I get
go
that.
into it.
I'm just okay, but I'm saying, could you briefly comment on that, just in general?
I don't have much to say because it's not really relevant. I mean, you could look up in other places. I don't have much to say about it. To me, the Rebbe Rashab didn't explain it. I don't feel a need to go there right now.
Okay.
As I said, if
Rabbi
you're interested,
Jacobson.
if you're interested, you have to go to this pasuk, and my Morech Chassidus that talk on this pasuk, and they may break it down what the two are.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Rabbi Jacobson, back to the laughing gas. Since I'm a dentist, I can tell you that definitely does not bring a simcha. Sometimes has complete opposite effect. Also, to your point, I think the reason Rabbi Rashab chooses to use
So
this
why do they
level
call
of
it laughing
simcha
gas?
after all the levels up,
Go ahead.
because it does make a lot of people laugh, but it's not through joy. It's very superficial. Was what I'm trying to say.
Okay, fine.
But also. No, that's. But also, my comment, or I don't know if I'm wrong or not, but I think there's a reason Rabbi Rashab is choosing to introduce this idea of simcha after Mesirat Nefesh and Avoda, because I really truly feel that true simcha is achieved through Avoda. It's not just something that you can bring yourself to do it. When you do the Avoda and you do Mesirat Nefesh and you really get rid of a lot of the junk, as if it were spiritual junk, that's when you can really tap into true simcha.
I think, yeah, I agree. And he's going to speak about this a little later. He's going to bring back B'chol Ma'adecha in this context. He's going to connect, I think, Simcha Shal Mitzvah with Ava B'chol Ma'adecha. I'm almost sure that he's doing that. I think so. But that's a while from now. That's like back on, listen, this topic of Simcha is going to continue here for a while. We're talking about at least 6-7 pages. And so it's going to be fascinating, that's for sure. What I've been thinking about is, in the context of the interface of Ayin Beis, it seems to me that this Simcha, Shal Mitzvah, is adding a dimension that was not set till now in how we ultimately bridge these different realities. Because Simcha seemingly has like that express train capacity to take us to another reality. I'm not saying fast, but like you could jumpstart and skip a lot of steps through Simcha because it just elevates the whole Ishtalshlus to another place. In other words, in a regular Avodah, day-to-day routine Avodah, you don't have that leap. And Simcha here clearly has that, just elevates everything to another state, which is interesting. But we'll talk about it some more, because obviously Simcha is not enough. You can't just say Simcha and that's it. You have Simcha, and you could just suddenly be after the Tzimtzum experiencing pre-Tzimtzum consciousness. So it's part of a whole picture, but it's interesting how this is going to be, how he's piecing it together, which I think we need to wait till he finishes what he's going to say about Simcha and how that's going to fit into the whole discussion that we've been having here. I see it leads right into the Rishimu. Interesting, yeah. Okay, it's very exciting where we're headed. We're headed into new terrains.
You know how you said the Simcha, the Rebbe's introducing like a new idea about how the express train, as you said it, of Simcha can bring, elevate, transcend the normal Seder of Ishtalshalis. But it's also what I just at the end there, and I'm sure we're going to learn more about it, how it can not only bring us to that level, but that it can cause a permanent change in the structure.
Yeah,
that's fascinating, right?
Yeah, we need to understand that better as well. How you can so-called package that,
right?
Because it could very well be we're going to have a whole new understanding what Simcha means in the first place. Most people think Simcha means maybe trach gut v'zayin gut, like just be positive. But I think it seems to be much more than that. Simcha here seems to be a very internal. It's almost like, that you're fundamentally connected to the source, so you are always in that like a heightened state. That's what it sounds like he's going to. But you know what? I don't want to leap, and I don't want to jump myself here, because remember, it's also Simcha Shal Mitzvah. What do the mitzvahs do? What does the Simcha do? What does B'chol Meidecha, the love, the all-consuming love that's Negei B'nefesh do? I don't want to jump, because you could also say maybe because when you really feel that God is Negei B'nefesh, then that itself is a tremendous Simcha. Because it's like, you're with the most important thing in existence, God, and you're in love, like that. So there's a lot of elements here that I don't want to even speculate yet, because he hasn't said it. So I don't want to just start throwing it in, but I'm mentioning it because just you can imagine that there's a lot of angles to this, and we'll see how it goes. I know one thing: he definitely is going to be surprises and a lot of interesting things that we have not yet learned. That I can assure you. What they are, I'm not sure myself yet. Like you don't want to read. Some people go to the end of the book. I'd rather not. It's great. Listen, what should I say, Rabbi Rashab? So my friends, we'll stop here. Where are we stopping? We're stopping. Where did I stop?
Stephen, this is a revolution. The idea, the whole page here about Simcha is a complete revolution, the way that Rabbi Rashab is explaining it. It's different, completely different from what people with their human understanding.
Why? Why do you say that?
And normally you feel it because it's the only way to postpone away the negativity. Here the Rabbi Rashab is explaining this is a special power which we still don't know exactly what it is, that is breaking through and reaching the essence.
Okay.
Let me just stop there. So we're stopping here.